All right, so we're going to be doing a goal setting today. So thank you guys all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here in just a little bit. Let me go ahead and make some quick little tweaks here. All right, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen here. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. Goal setting. This is actually one of my favorite classes because it's that time of the year. Everybody that's the New Year's resolution are welcome. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, not kidding. But this is definitely the time to start looking at the goals that we have, the goals that we're setting. What is it that we're doing? How do we get to, of course, that next level? Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. We don't need to go over this slide. Everybody should, in a sense, know who I am. Let's jump right into it. All right. So in this, we have to stop. We have to learn to think big and focus on our business plan. Now, we talked about our business plan last or 2 weeks ago. So it's always good for us to be able to build not only the short term, but of course those long term goals throughout the year so that we can put ourselves in a position where we're excited and stay on track. Okay. Now, as far as our goals, I talk about this all the time. One of the many commonalities amongst all of the agents that I coach that have done seven figures is that they're very clear. They're very clear as day as to what it is that they want. Number two is that they're very specific in the way that they follow their schedule. Okay. So they're great in their goals. They're even better when it comes time to managing their time. And then the third thing is that they become masters of the database. Okay, those are one of the three most common things. Now, this is part of mindset. Okay, and the part of the mindset that I'm referring to is we really don't necessarily think about the mindset aspect of things until we are in a negative mindset. Okay, that's the part where we start to dwell in the negativity. It starts to fester, if you want to call it that. But we really don't think too much about mindset when it's on the positive side. Sometimes it's just going through the motions. But when we have these goals in specific, it allows us the opportunity to have a laser focus as to what we're trying to accomplish. Okay. So again, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being here on time. If you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them. And yeah, we'll go ahead and address them. Moving on. Now, as far as we have to remember that it sounds good to have a well-balanced life. It unfortunately just doesn't happen that way. People who are highly successful are usually in an imbalanced position. Okay, they're always constantly chasing. Whether it's physically, we start to gain and or lose weight because we're doing so much running around that we forget about our health. We're making a lot of money, so we're not going to church as often as we are. So we start to lose our little bit of our spirituality. The family life is a little bit out of whack because we're constantly running around setting all kinds of appointments. Or the opposite. It's this constant chase that we find ourselves. So when people sit there and tell me, Coach, I want to live a well-balanced life, I'm like, me too. Good luck. Okay. It's the pursuit, okay, is my point. In the pursuit of what we're trying to accomplish, highly successful people understand this. Okay? They understand that we're going to be out of balance. We understand that there's going to be some times where we are going to find ourselves chasing whatever that area of opportunity is. Again, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, relationship wise with your significant other, it's a constant battle. But the goal of it is to constantly find the areas of opportunities and make them, basically stronger. Okay. Now, if your goal is to sell, and I know it says on here 100 plus homes, but if it doesn't matter, if your goal is to sell, twice as many homes, three times as many homes, don't be disappointed. Okay. Don't find yourself in this sense of disappointment and allow yourself to be continuously discouraged because of this imbalancement. Okay. Unbalancement. I think I just created a new word. It's just part of the process. Okay. So in the pursuit of getting to that next level, there might be, if I'm coaching you, I might be asking you to put in a little bit more time. I might be asking you to hold some more open houses. I might be asking of you to, work a couple of more Saturdays or Sundays or whatever it may be. But ideally, as we're continuing to do that, that's putting it into the bank so that when we fast forward 6 months, or even for that matter, a year from now, it gives us the opportunity to be able to, what we banked or what we put in the savings, we can now recoup that because now we can take the Saturday off. Now we can take the Friday off. Now we can take the extended weekends because we put so much energy and effort of what it takes to get this process started. Now, one of the things I do always encourage people is to share your business goals with your family. Okay, especially those of you that are in a relationship. Okay, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and it doesn't matter. It's not gender specific because I will sometimes be coaching women, and then the husbands are like, "Man, like, when do I have my wife back?" Well, part of it is sharing those goals with them. Show them the benefits. Show them with what it is that you're doing and why you're doing this. The more that your family buys into this program, the better off you are. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you're going to do this constantly. I don't want to scare people away and say, oh my gosh, I got to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, be away from my family, be away from my loved ones in order to accomplish this. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there are going to be the extended evenings. There are going to be the times where you have to work the Saturdays. There are going to be the times where they may not necessarily understand. I don't know about you, but for me, at least initially, not so much going through the process of it, but initially, it's almost as if though our family doesn't think we have a job, right? It's almost as if though, well, you know what? Let me go ahead and have Robert do this because he could go run around, he could go do this, and we buy into it. Okay. Now we want to be careful with this part because in this, when we don't share it with our family, they don't quite understand the challenges that we have to go through. Okay. There's three parts that I like to break down our goals. Okay. The three parts to our goals is number one is the business. What are business goals? Well, business goals are going to be things along the line of the number of units, the amount of income, the what's it called? Being the number one agent, getting this award, getting the corner office, building a team, having a buyer's agent, anything that has to do with that. The second one is material. For some of you, this is probably the easiest. And the material things are things that you buy. Okay, things that you buy: cars, houses, boats, trips, jewelry, all of these things that you buy. That's the second thing, and that's again material. The third one is the one that is, in most cases, the hardest, but it's the most rewarding, and that's personal. What are personal goals? Well, think of along the line of things that you have to earn. Okay, as an example, losing weight. Maybe some of you might be gaining weight. Some of you might be running a marathon. How about a spiritual relationship? How about reading more books? How about, being in a position where you promise yourself that you were going to go to church more often? You were going to read the Bible more often, as an example. Are you making these changes? And if you're not, look at where you want to accomplish. Okay. Now, in the three different categories, there's always going to be a fourth hidden one, and that's going to be the action steps. But you don't know the action steps until you know with what the business, material, and of course, personal goals are. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Anything that I can address? Okay, because I don't want to continue just simply ramble on. All right, moving on. Now, we have to remember you become what you think about most often. Therefore, you want to be thinking about your goals so that they become reality. Now, if you haven't heard of the term RAS, okay, the RAS is your reticular activating system. That RAS is basically the subconscious bringing it to the conscious. Our mind plays two, I'm sorry, our brain plays two primary functions. Number one is to survive. Okay, number one is to survive. Robert, breathe. You're not breathing. Watch out for that bus. Okay, basically that's with what the brain's purpose is. The second thing is problem solving. And in the problem solving, the more we think about these goals, the more that we, identify with what it is that we want. Well, our RAS, reticular activating system from the subconscious mind, starts to bring it to the conscious mind. And how does that show up? Let me give you guys a quick little example. The goal is to do, more business. And we go through, we do all the things that we're supposed to. And it's always going to be those thoughts that pops in your head and goes, I should call Joey. I haven't called Joey in a while. I give Joey a call. And why am I calling Joey? Why I'm calling Joey because I remember that he wanted to do something. Oh, that's right. I have to do this. I have to go run this errand. Oh, that's right. I have to do this other stuff. That's your RAS. That's basically what it's doing is it's doing its job and bringing it to the forefront. Okay. So what we want to do is the more often we're thinking about our goals, not our problems, because it's something of one of the things that I'm talking about. For some of you, it's more of the problems. Okay. We want to be in a position where Raz is thinking more about the problem solving of the goals. Does that make sense? Now, part of the challenge that I have with people, some of my coaching clients, is thinking bigger. Okay. I want you to set goals that are going to stretch your mind. It's going to, it's going to help you with your body, your emotions. It's going to help you from every single last aspect. You should have goals that kind of scare you. Okay. There's what are called BHAG goals. What are BHAG goals? BHAG goals are these big, hairy, audacious goals. Okay, big, hairy, audacious goals. So this is something that I'm going to encourage you to, to look at and constantly look at the things that you should be working on. Okay. Now, moving on. I want you to also review your goals, not just daily, but also weekly, and take the steps every single week to achieve these goals that you've set. Anybody ever, do these, what do you call it? Auto withdrawals as an example? Okay. I would encourage you to create these accounts, and these accounts, as an example, could be your vacation fund, could be the car fund, could be the house fund. And from every single last one of your commissions, okay, is sending money in that direction. Whether it's 1%, 2%, 5%, 50%, whatever those things are, I want you to be in a position where you are, of course, putting it in that direction. And those are the baby steps that's going to help you achieve your goals. Okay. Any questions? Anybody have anything? Now, I want to make sure you are taking notes. And if you are in that position, I want you to of course, ask away if there's nothing I'm sorry, if there are any items that maybe aren't as clear as you'd like them to be.
I just have one quick question.
Shoot away.
So as I'm reviewing this and obviously writing my personals for 2026, like, should there be a max or should you set it up by like quarters where you're not just setting a big yearly goal?
So the way that we're going to break them down. So as an example, the goal is to make, I don't know, let's say 250,000. And of that 250,000, you can break them up by quarters if you want to. You can even break them up by the monthlies if you wanted to. You can, for example, save you money for a house, vacation, whatever it is. Now, the breaking it down, whether it be on a quarterly basis, you look at the math, and that should be 65,000, whatever that number ends up being, every single quarter. For me, the way that I've always set goals is something that is going to be from a from a projecting standpoint. Sorry, I was trying to be fancy there with my word. So anyways, projecting and the escalation. So in other words, it might look like along the line of, instead of it being 62,500, I don't know what the number ends up being, maybe it's 50,000 in the first quarter. Maybe in the second quarter it's 55. Maybe in the third quarter it's 60. Maybe in that last quarter it's 75,000. Or you can always do it from a monthly aspect. Okay. What we also can do is break it down from a weekly standpoint. So the point is just to be reviewing the goals and seeing them as much on the constant as possible. Okay. The other thing too, there's a lot of power behind reading and writing the goals. I'm going to encourage you, whatever those goals are. One thing that I've always done is intentions. Intentions are a little bit different than affirmations. What are intentions? Well, intentions is future pacing. So if my goal was to make 250,000, not only viewing it, I would write it down every single day. I would get a composition book. There's 27 lines on that thing. There's technically 25, but I would write on top and write on the bottom, and I would go through and I would write down. I will earn 250,000 by the end of 2026. I will earn 250,000 by the end of 2026. And I would go through and just simply write them down every single day. And of course, as I'm writing them, I'm reading them. Okay. Now, we have all heard this before. A goal is basically a dream, but it's with a deadline. Okay. Or the other way around, if your goal doesn't have a deadline, it's simply nothing more than a dream. So we have to make these commitment that turns these things into reality so that we can complete them. We want to create obtainable. This is also part of the equation. We break them up into 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year goals. That's a way to break them up from short, mid, and long-term goals. I would even encourage you to look at doing some longer extended goals, maybe like 10-year goals. Actually, in a lot of Asian countries, they'll put together 100-year business plans. They'll put together these goals for 250 years. Like, why in the world are we doing, 250-year business plans or goals? Well, the point is to think bigger. The point is to have a sense of trajectory. That was the word I was seeking earlier, to have a sense of trajectory of with where we're wanting to go. So it could look along the line of this next year, my goal is to do 25 deals, but in 3 years, my goal is to do 60 deals. And in 5 years, my goal is to do 100 deals. So you have this trajectory moving in that direction. Okay. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. Feel free to, go ahead and put them in there. Let's take a look. We do have a question here. Eduardo's asking, my issue with goal setting is that it requires you to use your numbers, and my numbers are 0 because I'm new. No, that's not necessarily true, because again, we have to remember that it's only part of your goal setting, because goals are broken up in so many different aspects. Maybe for you, Eduardo, it might not necessarily be motivating when it comes time to your numbers. And don't limit yourself. Okay, don't limit yourself to I don't have the history, therefore I can't. No, no, no. Set an expectation, set a standard. And you shouldn't be in a position where 12 months later and look up and say, well, since I don't have anything, well, I guess I'm okay with 4. Set with what you think you would want to do. Okay. And it could possibly be wrong. This is common for me when I'm working with somebody brand new. They'll go through and I'll say, well, how many deals do you want to do? Well, I want to do 40 deals. Like, okay, well, my job isn't to tell you you can't do it. If you're going to do 40 deals, you got to do this, and this. Is that something you're willing to do? Yeah, I'm willing to do it, coach. And then they show up and they don't do this, they don't do that, they don't do this other stuff, and they don't do this other stuff, and they do a little bit of this. The problem, though, is that they're sitting there thinking that they're going to get this when they're not doing the results. It's no different than setting a goal when you've never been in a position where you need to lose weight. And now all of a sudden, well, my goal is to lose 25 pounds. Cool. Set the trajectory. What do you got to do? How soon do you want to accomplish this? Because you've never done it before doesn't mean you can't. Okay, so I don't want us to limit ourselves. Okay, now the next year, Eduardo, you might be in a position where at the end of the year, the goal was to do 20 this year and you only did 6. Well, you now have a starting point. The question now goes, how do I go from 6 to now 20? And then the next year, maybe you do 18. Like, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit better at this. I didn't do 20, but I got to 18. So next year, my goal is to do 30. And then now you do 29. And now you're getting better. At least you have a trajectory, is my point. Okay. Again, make sure you put a completion date for each of your goals, and you want to take action for them, because if you don't put any of the dates, the completion dates, it just becomes an eventually, a possibly, a hopefully at one point in time, I'm going to start losing weight. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to start on Monday. Problem though is that what Monday? And we keep doing these things to ourselves and we fool ourselves. So put a date as to when you'd like to complete it by. And again, remember, it doesn't have to be numbers. We're talking about goal setting in general. Identify what it is that you want and by when do you want it. Now, if you're off by a week or two, a month or two, or heck, even a year or two, who cares? At least you're moving in that direction. There's a saying that goes, as a younger version of me, I really appreciated this saying, this quote, which is shoot for the moon and land amongst the stars, meaning at least you're moving in that direction. Okay. which of course will put you in a position where you're farther than many others. All right, moving on. Anybody have any questions? We have to remember that success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal, a worthwhile goal or objective. Now, you determine what that success looks like. You determine what you're wanting to accomplish. If you don't have a goal, you don't have a vision, you got a license, you're a realtor, you're a lender, you're a title, you're escrow, you whoever it is, whatever sales that you're in, and if you don't have this goal, you're just showing up every single day. Well, maybe, hopefully, possibly, but you have these illusions that one day you're going to be owning a mansion, you're going to be owning, the Bugatti or the whatever it is. You have to make it to where it is a little bit of a stretch, but you do want to make sure that it is with what you want. You got to be clear on these goals as well. One thing that I learned early on is that there's nothing you can't have once you've mentally accepted that you can have it. Okay. Now you have to remember, I grew up, some of you may or may not necessarily know, but in San Bernardino. San Bernardino was ghetto. Okay. I grew up in a hood environment. I buried my best friend from, gang violence. I ended up burying six of my closest friends. And I accepted that as a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, that was my lifestyle. That's what it was about. So once I got into the real estate business and I started to look around, I go, man, that guy makes 100,000. This one makes 250. Man, that gal makes $500,000. How in the world? And of course, I started running into people that were making a million, 2 million, 3 million, $5 million. It puts us in a position where that exposes us. So there's nothing that we cannot have once you've mentally accepted it and move in that direction. Now, I want you to try a little bit of the different goal setting system. Okay, a little bit of a difference. And what I want you to do is I want you to decide on things that you would really like to have in life. What are the things that you would like to have in life? Um, I think it was Jim Rohn that once, as I'm listening to Jim, and Jim basically said, ask yourself, what do you really want to have in life? And all these people were answering, I want 100 homes. I want $1 million. I want, this car, this whatever. Okay, so well, let me ask the second question. What if you only had 12 months to live? Would that still be the same goal? Ooh, well, what would be the purpose of owning 100 homes? What would be the purpose of this? The point of Jim's message was nothing more than you have to be clear on what those goals are. And of course, he furthered on that and he said, what if you didn't have 12 months to live? What if you only have 30 days to live? So you want to look at those goals and you want to be very, very specific. And as you do that, make sure you write them down. Okay. You're going to list all the obstacles, but you're also going to list all the possible solutions. This gets in the way. I have this constant thing of doing the following. I keep sabotaging myself. I'm still watching, TV on Sunday night until midnight, yet it sets the tone for the entire week. Look at what are some of those obstacles. Set some deadlines. What are the goals that you're wanting to achieve? Set those deadlines. I want to be able to accomplish this, have this by this day. Again, you're going to put some action items in logical order. Okay, so in order for me to accomplish this, I need to make sure that I start with this. Well, maybe starting with going to bed on Sunday night a little bit earlier. Maybe setting my alarm just a little bit earlier. Maybe committing to an accountability where with someone, my goal is to be in the office by 8 o'clock on Monday. And if I don't, I have to pay somebody $50, $100, $1,000, whatever that is. Create the action steps that you need to take to accomplish that. Visualize your goals. Be in a constant state of visualization because that visualization, it allows the opportunity as we sit there and just simply close our mind, we quiet our mind, we visualize with what it is that we want. Now, you've done a great job of visualizing with what it is that you want when you can smell it, you can taste it, you can feel it, you can actually, almost as if though it's in your possession. Practice visualization on a constant basis. Okay. Practice this. Let's take a look. Moving on. All right. Last but not least is be persistent. I don't want you to quit because you had a bad day. I don't want you to quit because you had a bad week, a bad month, a bad whatever. I broke my foot. This happened, that happened. I have people where they've gone through horrific things, and I don't necessarily want to go down that list of some of the people that I've coached, and they've gone through, the separations, the divorces, the deaths in the family, the all of these things. And we sit there and we bang our toe and say, we got to take the week off. You have to be persistent. Persistency is what allows you the opportunity to achieve those goals. Okay. Now, I'm going to close with one last thing. And basically, that's going to be, well, two things. One thing is going to be with what I call is the plank example. What's the plank example? Some of you have heard this before. Okay. Some of you have never heard it before, but I'm going to go through it anyways. The plank example, what that basically is, this is out of a book. If I challenged you to cross a plank that is 3 feet wide, 3 feet off the ground, from one side of the street to the other side of the street, no cars, no nothing. It's basically just this plank. And I challenged you and I said, I want you to cross this plank for $100. How many of you would do it? Most of the time when I ask a large audience, I get 99% of the participation. They go, I do. I would do it. I mean, I don't get it, but sure, I'll make $100 real quick. Well, in the second example, if I change that plank, which is still 3 feet wide, okay, which is still from one side of the street to the other side of the street, but it now raised from 3 feet off the ground to 100 stories in the air, how many of you would now take that bet for of $100? No one. I think I've had like one person that said, yeah, I'd do it. I don't think you would. Okay, especially as you're looking down 100 stories, your life's way worth more than that. But in the third example, 3 feet wide, same distance, one side of the street to the other side of the street. Now, again, still 100 stories in the air. But what if in the other building there was the person that you love the most or your most prized possession? And in that building is now on fire. Nobody can save them. The only person that can save them is you by crossing that plank. The question now gets asked, would you cross that plank? Again, 99% of the people would say, absolutely. I'm going to go and save my mom, my dad, my son, my daughter, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my husband, my wife, my whoever it is. And the reason I go through that is because a lot of times in that very first example, we go through and we make just enough money and we pay bills. Cool. In that second example is 95% of the realtors. They want these goals, these very elusive goals, but they're not willing to take the risk that's necessary because they don't see the reward. But in that third one, when we start to be very clear with what we want, how soon do we want it? We know exactly with what we're going after. Those goals start to become reality. Now, in closing, what I want you to do, here's the part. I want you to create your 1 year, your 3 year, your 5 year goals. Remember, you're going to break them up. So you're going to have 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year goals. And that's going to be broken up by business, material, and personal goals. Okay. Business, material, and personal goals. Anybody have any questions that I can address? We've got a couple of minutes left. I'm not that good. Come on. Any questions? No, we're good. All right, cool. Well, then let's wrap this thing up. I just want to take a minute, of course, to say thank you all for being here. I will see you guys tomorrow morning. I'll see you guys at 7:30. Have a great one. Let's go make it happen. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.